And we pride ourselves on educating our clients to become better dairymen and better employers. Today there's 46 of us. We are one of the world's premier nutrition and management consulting firms. And we feed about 1 million head of milking cows in the United States, with 1.8 total between milking and dry. So the blue states are the states that we actively feed cows in. There's some places in here that don't have a lot of cows, in particular over in here anymore, unfortunately. And domestically, that was domestic, and internationally, we do quite a bit all over the world, in particular South America, and do some expanding and new markets. So alternative annuals. Everybody familiar with alternative annuals, what they are? Have you grown them? I've grown them, I haven't grown them. Anybody? All right, so we got some experience. So some different types of annuals. Bmr Forged Sorghum, Bmr Sudan, Sorghum Sudan, and then Italian Rye Grass, which is a biannual. And the newest and greatest kid on the block, the cocktail mix. So I'll go through and just show you a few slides and some information on each one. So Bmr Forged Sorghum, it's a one-cut system, treated like basically corn, planted through a corn planter or drilled. So some of the key points on Bmr Forged Sorghum nutritionally, so we're looking at about 11.5 protein, sugar 2.5, and NDFD 30 of about 57–58%, so some decent quality feed. Bmr Sudan, similar product, 9% protein, 5% sugar, NDFD 30 of 58. Italian Rye Grass, anyone ever Green Spirit?
I've had probably the best tillage, or the nicest looking field I've ever had with the next spring of that stuff, just incredible.
It's phenomenal feed. Yeah, this is actually one of my best friend's fields here of Italian Rye Grass. So 17% protein, this is 24-hour NDFD, but 68. So just to put them all together that you can't see very well. Nope, that's not going to work. No, I'm not going to. So we'll go back one. So let's try that. See what happens. Maybe not. Yeah, it's a slide. Damn it. So, anyways, to look at them, here we have Bmr Forged Sorghum, Bmr Sudan, and Italian Rye Grass, crude protein in blue, sugar in green, NDFD 30, and UNDF 240, which I don't have for all because the Italian Rye Grass, when I took that sample, there wasn't a lot of UNDF 240 being reported at that time. But as you can see, NDFD on all three of these products is quite high. Some, as high as John said earlier, Bmr corn silage, and UNDF 240 fairly low, all below 18. So the next evolution is the cocktail mix. This is what cocktail mix looks like in the field. Has anyone tried any of the cocktails YieldMax yet? Dave, you have. So it's an interesting combination product. And here's what's in it. So very quickly, I'll go through the individual ingredients and I'll break them out. So we have multiple types of sorghum, Bmr Sorghum Sudan. We have hairy vetch, Berseem clover, which is an annual. This will die through the winter. An additional an additional Bmr Sorghum Sudan. The Italian Rye Grass is also in there, and red clover. So King's designed this product by gathering some field data from all the annual crops that we have to offer, ranking them out by nutritional the nutrition quality, so selecting the best product for the cows, and then the best product for your cows for your area. To come up with YieldMax. So as I said, YieldMax, 60% Sorghum Sudan, that's a BMR variety. There's 2 or 3 in that. 25% Italian Rye Grass, 5% Red Clover, 5% Bercine, 5% Hairy Vetch. So to evaluate them on my end, I want a high plane of nutrition. I want the dairy to easily manage it. I need it to yield, and it has to be cost effective for me to try something new and to put it into practice. So let's talk feed quality. So 2 dairies I did the trial with last year. Unfortunately, both dairies are in Washington County, where John said we got 30 inches of rain in a month. So it was problematic, to say the very least. But as you'll see when I go through it, it did quite well. So if it did well last year, it should be phenomenal in a normal year. So one dairy, we took King's peas and oat mix, planted that first, and then took that off, chased it with YieldMax. The second dairy, we just did straight YieldMax as a seeding. So the peas and oats, the forage analysis on that first cutting, and the only cutting 15.2 protein, sugar, about 10% sugar with a UNDF 240 of 8. So pretty digestible stuff. We let this go a little longer if we fed it to heifers. So if we were going to cut it for cows, we would have cut it a little bit sooner. Now the YieldMax. So YieldMax, 14.6 crude protein, sugar 5.7 with an NDFD of 61, almost 62. One thing that I'll caution you on when you're looking at samples of different feedstuffs, especially something weird like this, make sure you run wet chemistry. These are all wet chemistry numbers, so it's the exact forage that I sent in. It's not an NIR analysis of the best guess. So if you look to the columns here to the right, you'll see the 60-day average was 50 and the 4-year average was 48. There's probably only 10 samples in the entire pool of cocktail mix. So these numbers over here mean absolutely nothing. The numbers you need to be that are important to us are the ones in bold, which they're all wet chemistry numbers. Second cutting on that cocktail mix. So we picked up a little bit of protein, 16.5 protein. NDFD stayed right around 60%. So we chatted yesterday a little bit in that meeting with the increase in protein. That additional, or that second cutting probably had a little more hairy vetch in it, a little bit more of the clovers came in, so we got a little benefit from that. And the
sugar dropped quite a bit between the 2 cuttings?
It did. So the dry matter is only 16%, so it used a lot of it to ferment. Again, like I said, these guys got 30 inches of rain, so ideally we wouldn't have put it up at 16% dry matter, but I'd rather have wet feed than rained on feed.
So this would be like a cut and wilt situation?
Yes. Yep. This would be a cut, wilt, treated like grass silage basically. But like I said, I didn't want it to get rained on. For one, I wanted the data, and two, I had to feed this to cows too. So
One day or 2 days?
this was the next day chopped. Not ideal by any means, but that's what Mother Nature gave us, so we took it and ran with it. Man, why does that bleed in? So to compare the summer annuals that we have available to us now with the cocktail mix, you can see crude proteins. We're still, with the cocktail mix, is pretty close to Italian ryegrass on the average. The sugar content, fairly similar. NDFD, up, very similar. UNDF 240, very similar as well. So as far as quality goes, here crude protein 11, 9, 17, 16. UNDF 240 on the averages was 16, 13, and 13 again. So consistently digestible feed with a decent protein analysis and fairly decent sugar content. I'm going to guess when it was initially harvested, but it used a lot of it through fermentation. So choosing the right cocktail mix. So Ford Super Bowl, World Dairy Expo, everybody's familiar with that contest. This year, YieldMax took first place in the quality counts. It took first and third in the Grand Champion Mixed Haylage category. There was another that won second place in the same category as a cocktail mix, but that was one of Byron's. It is not the same as YieldMax. Be very careful if you're looking at other seed dealers' products labeled as a cocktail mix. This one is not designed for our area. It is a completely different animal. It may have some very similar products in there, but it will not work the same as what YieldMax will do for you. YieldMax is designed for your soils in our area. So managing it, we just plant it like a seeding, fertilize by recommendations, and I'll go through some of that, what we did here in just a minute. Cut it 2 or 3 times. As I said in yesterday's meeting, I would be very hard pressed to think we're going to get 3 cuttings of this. Both of those dairies got 2 cuttings from that product, and Paul actually got peas and oats ahead of it. Come on. So is it cost effective? So looking at the trial, what we did was to track everything through. So land rent, $30, cost us $33 an acre to till it, $42 to plant it. Seeding cost was $94 for the cocktail mix, about $53 an acre to harvest. We put 4,000 gallons of manure on, which manure is up here, $100. Actually 2.5 cents a gallon, just rounded it. So we got $100 an acre of manure, $550 a ton last year, fertilizer, not this year. And we used 200 pounds of that for a cost per acre of $407. This is on cocktail by itself. Peas and oats, and then cocktail chasing it, very similar costs in. Difference being we had another planting, we had another light tillage, and we applied some manure before we put that seed in the ground. So $569 per acre for the peas and oats, then the cocktail mix. Do you guys think that's expensive? Do you think that's on point?
Your rent price is gonna go much higher than that.
What's that?
Your rent price would be a lot more higher than that. I would say, multiply that by 5 at least.
For this year?
The land are all 150 acres.
Oh,
Rent's gonna be much higher than that.
well, I guess it depends on what area you're in. Yeah, for Lancaster, PA, it's 10 times that or more. So yield data on the cocktail mix. So first cutting, we got 4.5 tons wet. Second cutting, we got 7, so we ended up with 11.5 tons, which was okay. But one caveat to this, the dairy that we did this on averaged 8.5 ton of corn silage last year, to give you an idea of the rainfall problems we had. So the peas and oats and cocktail, we got roughly 10 ton of peas and oats, YieldMax 4.5 and 7, with 21.5 ton total wet tons. To break it down to see if we made money, our actual costs in, variable costs per acre at $10. Whether or not you use inoculant, the guy mowing wants to take a break and take a nap for a minute, so a little bit of variable cost in there. So the break even on this was roughly 7 ton per acre. If we had to replace that feed with purchased product off the farm at $65 a ton this year, I'd be really curious to see what that number is going to be. Peas and oats, $569 fixed cost, $10 variable, $65 a ton to purchase haylage off farm. Break even was 10 ton per acre. So was it profitable? Our net profit on both of those trials, with the cocktail mix, we netted $198 per acre over input costs. And with the peas and oats, we netted $586 per acre. over inputs.
And you could take a cutting the next year of the,
So we talked about that yesterday. One dairy, we smattered it with manure and we're never going to see it again. The other dairy, there was so much rye growth, we let it go. And we want to see what it looks like in the spring to see if we take a cutting or not. The concern that was raised yesterday, we didn't clip it. So we don't know if it got too tall and we're going to get a lot of winter kill. But we'll evaluate that in the spring. Either way, we got a bunch of biomass on that field that's going to be a benefit. We just, more than anything, wanted to try something different to see if we could get more tons of dry matter per acre. With the peas and oats and the cocktail mix, I think that, if memory serves me, it was 5.5 ton of dry matter with those products. So both dairies very happy. And we're going to double the acres that we did last year again this year to give it another go to see.
That 198 figure doesn't look that exciting, but if you consider 8 ton corn silage, they probably lost more than that per acre.
So the loss, if I only look at it, what we're buying corn silage right now for $70 a ton delivered to the farm. On 600 cows, that's a lot of dollars a month. Yes, staggering. So yeah, it doesn't look like a lot when you're like, oh, geez, only $200. It was a profit because we've got a lot of corn acres that are not. John?
You've never had a year like that though with corn silage.
No, never. Hopefully we never do again. I pray to God we never do again. It was the worst case scenario. But if you drive, from where that dairy is, if you drive just 25 minutes in any other direction, they had some phenomenal corn. And I've got clients in that same area that pulled, 18 to 22 ton corn this year, and these guys 8.5. I mean, it just.
So what was the rainfall like? Was it in May? Was it throughout the year?
It was a lot throughout the year, but it was later on. So they got July, I think it was July, we got 30 inches in July. But the issue they had was we were getting storms that were 8 to 12 inches of rain dumped on us. And the ground was like cement, and there was no nitrogen left to even speak of. So, to put it this way, a couple of the dairies I work with there, we top dress nitrogen with a helicopter.
Shawn, did that sorghum survive that?
It did. Yeah, that was the impressive part.
I remember sorghum, this trade sorghum, Bmr Sorghum, find that conditions you talked about, this one disaster, just being yellow and with anything. I was just curious if the other yellow species helped it.
That's the only thing I can think that from the other species in there that helped it keep going, because you're right, usually in conditions like that stuff withers and yellows and dies. Yeah.
I've seen that with sorghum, and it doesn't like buckwheat at all.
Not at all.
Does not do well, and I was curious the other species kept it going, which really surprised me. It's just cool to see that.
Yeah, and Dave, it's the only thing I can think of that helped it along, because when they went down for the second cutting, they were expecting to come.
Tiled well or anything like that? Do they have a lot of line movements? Is it systematically tiled draining or anything like that?
Nah, medium, sandy loam soil, and it's not pattern tiled. It's just traditional wet hole out. So.
So you visually took a look at it with them several times from the years to watch, and it seemed to help out pretty well.
Yeah, it was.
Hear that X-ray, it's good to hear that stream, how well it did in that stream is what I'm getting at.
Yep. Yeah, I was.
I think that's potentially one advantage of mix,
Yeah.
is that it builds some resiliency in that forage that, maybe in fact the Sorghum Sudan didn't do as well as it could have, but the other species kicked in a little bit better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We were very pleasantly surprised, like I said, especially on second cutting, going down to harvest that feed. There was feed there, and it looked way better than the corn did, to say the very least.
how about establishment date, like early June? Do you want it to be warm enough for the sorghum?
Yep. 60-degree soils, and then go. Yep.
For herbicides, right? No herbicide applications needed, right?
Nothing. Yeah, the only thing.
Label for all that mixes.
Yeah. I don't even think we can use like Parallel Plus or Bicep or any of that stuff, right? Nothing. Yeah. No, really nothing.
What's the tillage like on this farm and how did you plant it?
So it was all drilled. Everything was drilled. And it is minimum till. So we didn't, no chiseling, nothing like that. Speed discs, and then planted.
You roll it afterwards, probably, or like anytime I've done the summer annual, if you don't roll it, you pick up so many rocks with a merger, it's not good.
Yeah, so I'll get, the mergers are a problem with it.
Brakes are worse though.
Yes. So if you can roll it, definitely roll it. The one dairy had a very large fold-out roller, and that did a great job. The other dairy just had the smaller one behind the drill. Did okay. But it wasn't my chopper, so.
Shawn, did you see the clover get established?
Yeah.
for First cutting, or was it more second cutting?
So in first cutting, it was wee little buggers. I mean, it must have been 4 to 6 inches, very thin. On second cutting, it was about knee high, and same thing with the hairy vetch that came in as well. So reasons to consider: it spreads out your planting schedule. You have to wait until the ground's 60 degrees. A longer spring manure application. That's what we did on the one dairy. We put extended manure application on that ground, and then we're able to get corn done, first cutting done, and then put this crop in. Same thing in the fall. If you're not going to try to get it to go through to a next year, you can get on that ground quick, get a bunch of manure out. And there's definitely a double cropping opportunity. Both of those dairies are going to go with peas and oats and YieldMax next year just because of the return we saw. I don't know if we can do anything better than peas and oats just because of the time frame. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like, can we do that and get the same yield in the same time frame or not? I can talk them into trying some of those things. Most of especially these two dairies, they let me try a lot.
I really like peas and oats. Works pretty good.
Yeah, I've always liked it. I like using them, at a lighter application with seedings and just even a straight crop.
So which crop do you use to determine when you're harvesting?
Of the YieldMax?
And yeah, in the cocktail. So you got all these different crops.
So the Sorghum Sudan is the predominant player in the game, so we use that. 40 inches-ish is kind of what our goal was. Like with Bmr Sudan, guys, 36 inches, I like 33, 31, in that range. A little smaller, a little better NDFD. But yeah, we use the Sorghum Sudan to determine that. And then with this year, we used the Sorghum Sudan, and we used the weather report and the cloud cover and everything when we had some form of a window. So with those products in particular, we can get some high yielding, very, very digestible feedstuffs. So caveats to that. We mowed these with Pottinger triple wings. Mowed fine, no issues there. Merging it. Mergers did not like the headlands at all. It was problematic. I've never got so many nasty phone calls from guys running mergers in my life.
You have to end up doing it at diagonal.
Yes, we did. Yep. The one comment that in particular one dairy made was, if we had our old mower and had some form of conditioner on it just to mix it up a little bit, it would have made merging so much nicer. But of course, they all went to just mow it and drop it. So
That's what I did.
yeah, we looked at that, but the concern with the tedding is the amount of mass that you have on the ground to try to fling that around. We weren't sure, one, how many stones we were going to get into it, what's the ash content going to be, and with this year, we were just trying to get it done before it rained again. Chop length. Like I said before, we treat it like grass silage. I did have them shorten the chop length up on it, just to increase packing density in the bunk. It's,
So was that wet?
yeah, because the only thing think of as the hollow stem of the Sorghum Sudan was spongy. And I mean, I'd walk up on it and it would bounce. So yeah, we shortened it up, slightly longer than corn silage, but, and that packed very, very well and kept. Even at those, you know, ridiculously wet moistures, we didn't have any butyric acid issues. We do put inoculant on everything, every ton, every time. But it surprised me, you know, one, the yield that we had with the cruddy year, and then two, the quality of feed coming back out, and then the input costs. I think it's going to be a good mix, especially with fertilizer prices this year being what they are. Might be a good opportunity to utilize some manure, and in a case where maybe you can't get the seed to put your seeding in, this might be a good skip a year on a seeding program.
What kind of energy levels? I saw sugar, but I didn't see like an NEL.
So, yeah, so those were wet chemistry, so they don't give you an NEL.
Okay.
I don't remember what the NDFD was. So based on the NDFD, I'd say there was probably 68 to 71, maybe, NEL. Other questions, concerns?